What intrigues you the most? What is the thing you're really going to be focused on in this spring game? And I'll start with you, Kipp. Is there a player? Is there maybe a unit or a position group you're particularly interested in watching when we get to Sanford Stadium on Saturday?
I want to see how consistent Quintavious Johnson is at creating pressure. I think when we're looking ahead to, after G-Day and when this transfer portal opens, that's kind of the position where we're you have to think that Georgia's been evaluating all spring. How do they see this position room? Do they think this room is ready and deep enough to, create havoc on a consistent basis? And it does begin right now with Quintavious Johnson. So if he's out there consistently getting to the quarterbacks, obviously not able to get home and actually take them down. But, if he's tagging and he's in the backfield and plays are getting called, maybe Georgia, isn't feeling as desperate to need to get, an impact guy in the portal. They still might want to address the position as far as depth, but I think he's kind of the key as far as question marks on the roster as it stands right now, because Damon Wilson leaving was a shock. And he had him kind of plugged in there with Quintavious, rotating in. You thought that's still a really solid group. Now it's after him, who is going to be that next guy? So not just him, that position group. I want to see how they do against an offensive tackle group that, you got some young guys mixing in there. Ernest Green it sounded like he had a really solid spring. Bo Hewley mixing in there. We've heard great things on Jaw Jackson, a guy that maybe he might be pushing for that swing tackle spot this fall. How those guys do against these edge rushers will go a long way into how I think Georgia approaches this transfer portal season.
Yeah, watching the trenches really with both teams, and then both sides of the ball, super interested, want to see what they are able to do. And again, that edge position, is sort of the position to watch for Georgia, particularly when we talk about after spring and what they do. Do they go in the portal? Do they not? Do they stand pat? So I think it makes a lot of sense to pay attention there. Ben, what about you? Is there a player? Is there a position you're really keying in on once G-Day gets underway on Saturday?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it until Kipp started talking about it. So I do like just the edge position, outside linebacker, and then also running back. Like, I do think that those are two potential transfer positions. So I guess watching those to see, because I think Georgia will probably be trying to determine, like, are those rooms where they need to be, or do they need to add a body in either or both of those rooms? I definitely think is a conversation. So watching those position groups probably has transfer implications. At the beginning of spring, when I asked some people in the building, like, what are you most curious about or looking for this spring? I won't say the only response I got, but the most common response I got was, what happens at safety? Like, I think everyone knows what KJ Bolden is, but when you bring in, and this isn't the first time I've talked about safety this spring, but when you bring in 3 transfer portal guys at safety, who emerges? Does somebody that was already on the roster take that as enough of a personal slight that they do everything that they need to do this spring, that they actually take hold of that? Like, I think you think about, all right, Jaden Harris has a lot of experience playing big time football. Adrian Maddox has really impressive build. Zion Branch probably has a chip on his shoulder of his own, just because he always gets kind of thrown in as the add-on to Zachariah Branch. And so, it's interesting, the 3 that they ended up bringing in, but then you've got a guy in Ja'Cory Thomas that's been here, that has been in the conversation. It's like, I doubt that Ja'Cory Thomas just sees 3 transfer guys come in, decides on his own, accord to stick around when he could have easily gone and looked around other places as well, and has approached this spring any way other than, I'm going to prove why I am the best option, even compared to all of these transfer portal guys that you bring in. And so it's going to be the first time that we can really take a look. I don't know offensively how vanilla Georgia is going to be to try and attack these safeties, but I think that if you want to get an opportunity to see how all of these guys perform in Sanford Stadium with fans around, like, I don't know about y'all, but I would probably dial up a game plan to expose everyone as best as I possibly can to try and figure out what you really have at safety in that environment. So that's probably what I'll be watching the most closely. And then, of course, the freshmen. Any freshman that make a big play, everyone's going to have decided they're a future All-American. So I'm excited to see, who that is. I know Elijah Griffin will do some things. Maybe CJ Wiley, Talon Taylor, Elias Williams, like some of these guys that are more physically ready. They do something cool on Saturday. I mean, we're never going to hear the end of it from fans.
But it's going to help us through, April all the way to August, which is music to our ears. We want to keep the people talking over on Dogs 24/7. Ben took the big one for me, which was safety, because Kirby has talked about no one's really separated themselves. And I know you might hear that and maybe panic, but I honestly think it's a situation where, okay, Adrian Maddox had a really good day. Oh, okay, Ja'Cory Thomas has had a good day. I don't think it's necessarily, oh man, we really need someone to step up. I just think you're looking for that consistency. So to see how they play is important to me. And the other one that I think one of you guys mentioned, running back, and it's really the whole group. We know Nate Frazier, and we know that he proved himself last year, but again, this is going to be his first G Day. How does he play? Everybody's going to pay attention to his ball security. Can he hold on to the football? Does he have any issue with fumbles? And then elsewhere, I think you just kind of work your way down the list. Chauncey Bowens, it sounds like, has really practiced well in the last few weeks. They need someone to step up, given that I highly doubt we're going to see Branson Robinson or Roderick Robinson. They may go through pregame stretches. I feel like Georgia's done that in past years. Some of these injured guys, get them in uniform, let them kind of warm up, but then they're going to watch from the sideline. So can Chauncey, take advantage? Can Dwight Phillips Jr. get involved and maybe make some plays? Can Bo Walker add to what's been a very impressive start to his Georgia career? Cash Jones, who I feel like we routinely will not list when we're talking about running back, and he's the third down back and a guy that, we talked to him on Tuesday night, and he talked about how much confidence he has now at this point in his career and, want to go out there and help this room and be that veteran in the room. Cash will probably get some run as well. So, yeah, running back to me is very important. And it sort of goes against what Ben was just talking about. If they go out there and dial it up, you might not see quite as much from the running backs. Or if Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo decide, look, let's not go crazy. We'll take a few deep shots, but let's let these running backs go to work. We might see quite a bit from several of these running backs, and it'll be worth watching to see if they take advantage.